This webinar will be recorded, so I hope that you are okay with this. And it will be later on published on our YouTube channel. And this webinar is part of a series of webinars dedicated to the Swedish IT market and different verticals in this market. This is the second one. The first one was about 3 weeks ago, where we presented our newest IT study regarding the Swedish IT market. We could share with you the link for the study a little bit later on. And my name is Anna Maria Delio. I work as a project manager here at the Open Trade Gate Sweden, at the National Board of Trade Sweden. And I'm responsible for the IT sector. I will be your host and moderator today. And together with me, I have my colleague Oskar Tolin, who is going to Oskar works also for Open Trade Gate Sweden, and he is going to help us with the more practical part of the webinar. He will pick your questions and give it to us to answer them. So welcome, Oskar. And to look at to help us understand the current developments on the Swedish gaming market and to give us more practical advice from inside the market, we have our guest, Niklas Mellqvist, who is informatics lecturer and founder at Ultiro, who is a Swedish IT company. Welcome, Niklas. And last but definitely not least, our special guest, Anna Högberg Jelenius, who is a founder of Variant Game Studio. Welcome, Anna. Welcome to both of you. And as said, I strongly encourage you to ask questions in the Q&A section, since the chat is not activated, and we will answer them by the end of this session. And if you wonder how we are going to go about what we are going to discuss today, in about 50 minutes that we have left, we will go through, Niklas will introduce us to the Swedish gaming market, and he will give us insights regarding development trends, requirements, and so on. And after that, I will interview Anna regarding more practical aspects of the business. At the end of the session, we will have a Q&A. And I hope that you will be active in the chat and ask a question and use this opportunity. We have 2 really good experts with us today. But to start with, for those of you who are not familiar with Open Trade Gate Sweden, I thought about introducing us very shortly. Open Trade Gate Sweden is a small group at the National Board of Trade Sweden, who is the Swedish agency for trade and EU internal market. So what we do in practice, we work with international trade issues, trade policy, and even trade within the EU, which is our internal market. And at the National Board of Trade, we work a lot with development cooperation. And that means that we help, on one side, we help ministries in developing countries to improve their capacity to work with international trade issues and trade policy. And on the other hand, we work at Open Trade Gate Sweden, we work with more like export promotion, support export promotion from developing countries to the Swedish market. And what we do, we facilitate trade for SMEs in developing countries towards the Swedish market and the EU market. Open Trade Gate Sweden is all our activities are financed by the Swedish development aid, development cooperation fund. So it's public money that finance all our activities and projects. This is why we don't charge for anything that we do. So if we provide you with information or with support, if we, for example, work in projects with different development countries and help their companies to come to the Swedish market, this will be very much free of charge. Our strength is our network in Sweden. And what we do, we help companies from developing countries a lot to network in the Swedish market and find relevant partners. But we also work with capacity building. So we try to support the companies to work better, not only on the Swedish market, but also in the international market in general. We are divided, our activities are divided in two lines of work. But the most interesting for you today is our contact point, because through our contact point, we are able to provide information about the Swedish market, depending on what questions we get. And we usually get questions from the exporters in developing countries interested to learn more about the Swedish market or to find out ways to come into the market and so on. And in order to answer these questions, which are usually very complex, we work with other public authorities in Sweden. We work also with market experts in the Swedish market. And usually our partners in developing countries are both exporter but also export support organizations. I will not keep you longer about us because we have a quite comprehensive website where you can find a lot of market studies with regarding different markets in Sweden. And you also find one of our websites part of our, let's say, training material. There is a lot of materials to support a company that would like to go international and to guide a company how to go around an international journey and internationalization journey. And if you have questions about the Swedish market, you are welcome to send them to our inbox. And for questions related to the IT sector, you can directly contact me. Good, but we will not spend more time right now about the Swedish market because I think that our next point on the agenda is very, very interesting, and I would very much like to go to that. And now it's time for Niklas to help us understand what are the latest developments on the gaming market in Sweden, both trends, how the market looks like, but also what are the requirements in case a company would like to find partners or to find business on the Swedish market. Please, Niklas. I think you can share your screen.
Yes, I think
and feel free to add a little bit to your presentation because my presentation was very short. So.
Okay. Yeah, I'll try to add share my PowerPoint directly.
Okay.
To start with that. So can everyone see the presentation?
I believe so. I see it.
Cool. I think I have to turn off my camera because I have some technical issues. So hello, my name is Niklas Mellqvist, and as Anna-Maria already said, I'm a product manager at Ultiro and also teach informatics at the Mid-Sweden University. And I've done a recent study in collaboration with the National Board of Trade, Sweden, on the Swedish gaming industry. And I'm here to basically present some insights in the gaming industry based on that report, based on that study. So as Anna Maria briefly mentioned, I will try to cover why Sweden is a big player in game development, some trends shaping this industry, and opportunities, of course, for collaboration. And first off, as we can see here, Sweden is actually one of Europe's top centers for game development. We have currently about 939 game studios over here, which is one of the highest numbers in the region. Also worth to mention that the industry has grown about 20% in just the past year, thanks to strong tech infrastructure, very skilled talent, and a culture that really supports innovation. And in case you don't know anything about Swedish game development, we work across all kinds of games, from AAA titles to mobile and VR and AR experiences. We have companies like Embracer Group, Stillfront, that are expanding Sweden's global reach, you could say, through partnerships, through acquisitions, and also try to attract a lot of interest and investment from all around the world. As already mentioned, Sweden has one of the highest numbers of game studios in Europe, with over 900 companies that are shaping this industry. And as we can see here, in 2022, Swedish game companies brought in over 8 billion euros globally, which is about 40% jump from the year before. And this shows just how important the gaming industry is to Sweden's economy. And Sweden's global connections are a very big part of this success, I would say. Swedish gaming companies work with partners all around the globe, creating opportunities for studios and also talent from different regions. And this international focus is what keeps Sweden competitive and also innovative. We have some major Swedish companies that also open the door for skilled developers worldwide, which makes it quite easy for international talent to collaborate and contribute here. Some key trends. Sweden is quite well known for its tech innovation, not just in gaming, but in the IT industry in general. But specifically in gaming, especially with advancements in AI, VR, and AR, we have companies like EA Seed, EA Dice that you've probably heard about. We have Resolution Games that are basically pushing the boundaries of immersive and interactive experiences. And the chart here shows the projected growth of Sweden's AI market. As we can see, by 2030, it's expected to be over 5,000 million euros. And this highlights just how AI is a major, how should I put it, a major driver of innovation, not just in gaming, but across other industries as well. Sustainability is a big focus for Swedish gaming companies. For example, we have Embracer Group that is working to reduce emissions by quite a lot, I think about 45%. We have other companies like Stillfront that have developed guides for eco-friendly practices. And we also have some studios that are even integrating sustainability themes directly into their games. There's also been real progress in gender diversity. In 2023, about 44% of the 500 new employees in the Swedish gaming industry were women. And now we have over 2,000 women employed in the sector. And this is supported by different initiatives like Women in Games or Valkyrie Game Jam, if you ever heard about that, which basically promote a more inclusive workplace. Finally, the industry relies heavily on international partnerships and outsourcing. And this approach, of course, helps Swedish companies to manage the problem with skill shortages, and it can also reduce risk from political or economic instability, basically by spreading out the talent and the production bases. And partnerships in areas like quality assurance and localization are quite essential to basically keep the production steady and resilient. So we come to talent shortages and dependence on international workforce. And so one of the biggest challenges in the Swedish gaming industry is, of course, skill shortage. Even though we have some quite strong game education programs here. The industry is simply growing so fast that it's hard to keep up with the demand. And this shortage basically limits production capacity because companies have to struggle to recruit enough skilled people, which makes it harder to scale up and meet the growing demand. And to address this gap, some Swedish companies are increasingly turning to an international workforce. We actually have more employees in Swedish-owned companies abroad than within Sweden itself right now. So as you can see in this diagram, the number of employees outside of Sweden, which is highlighted in light pink here, has grown quite significantly. And this only shows how much the industry depends on international talent. It also depends a lot on partnerships, partners and freelancers from other countries. An approach that can give companies the flexibility they need to stay competitive, basically in the worldwide. So outsourcing is quite essential, especially for roles that I already mentioned, like quality assurance, localization, and also to adopt new technologies that we may lack. So Swedish gaming companies in general want suppliers who really know the local market and have, of course, skilled teams. Everyone wants skilled teams, that's quite obvious. But quality is quite a big deal, high quality production. So it's quite important to work with people who understand the gaming world and, of course, have the right skills. As I already mentioned, sustainability, really important in Sweden and also in the Swedish gaming industry. As I already mentioned, we have companies like Embracer Group, Stillfront that are working quite hard to reduce their environmental impact. And they also expect their suppliers to do the same often. Not in all cases, but in some cases. And as you can see in this chart, we have about 68% of the people that think that sustainability matters a lot here in Sweden, which only shows the high standards expected from the suppliers. Of course, this might not be true for every single company, but it's definitely a strong trend that you may have to consider. Suppliers is also important to be flexible when it comes to Sweden's financial and legal requirements. Things like GDPR compliance is quite a big deal because Swedish companies really value things like data privacy and ethical business practices. Diversity and inclusivity, difficult English word to pronounce, are quite important in the Swedish gaming industry. We have, like I mentioned, programs like Women in Games that have helped to bring more women and also non-binary professionals into the field. So suppliers who support a diverse workforce that's something that definitely could be appreciated by some companies. Finally, as I've basically already mentioned, it's essential to follow rules like GDPR and to try to uphold strong ethical standards. So Swedish companies rely a lot on their partners to protect data privacy and also to build trust. So that's something to really consider. And also briefly, I wanted to go through some opportunities to enter the Swedish market through partnership. So Sweden's gaming market is quite well established and offers a unique entry point for international studios, especially through different partnerships. We have a strong market presence here in Europe, but also globally. And that's also backed by some of the world's top gaming companies, which makes Sweden quite a reliable partner for foreign companies that are looking to expand. There are also plenty of acquisition opportunities here. Swedish companies have been expanding through acquisitions, both locally and internationally, which shows the industry's openness to growth through new partnerships. Sweden has a network of regional incubators and accelerators that can offer a great support for startup companies. And these hubs that we have, they can provide training, mentorship, and networking to help smaller studios and developers enter the Swedish market more smoothly. And this is not only for local startups, but in some cases also for international collaborations. Yeah, this diagram may not be 100% relevant to this specific bullet point. I don't know why I put it here, but it shows the most popular programming languages, which are in high demand. And having expertise in these languages can, of course, be an asset for new studios and startups looking to partner in the Swedish market. But as all of you know that are working in game development or development in general, if you're a skilled developer, if you know some languages, you can probably adapt and learn most programming languages that are similar. And the last bullet point, value of international collaborations. So Swedish companies, we really value working with partners from other countries to help fill skill gaps, but also to help us bring in new ideas. And this openness creates a lot of opportunities for studios worldwide to be part of projects with a global impact, basically. Yes, that's basically all it was quite a brief overview of the Swedish market and some opportunities. There's a lot more to read in the report that Anna Maria is going to share with you, I think. And we also have time for questions. But that's all from me for now. So thank you, and over to you, Anna Maria.
Thank you, Niklas, for a very good presentation. Really, I would be exactly like Anna, because you created such a positive picture of the Swedish market with a lot of opportunities. And I love a lot the fact that you highlighted the openness to international collaborations. With that said, you also highlighted that, or maybe it's me trying to see it like that, that the Swedish market is not among the easiest market actually to work with. You need both patience and a good plan to come into the market, but the opportunities are there, so you need to have the right kind of motivation probably to try to access them. I suggest that we do like this. I'm looking at the clock. I have a clock here on the wall. I suggest that we go to the next point. And now I can see that the questions are dropping in. We take a quick dive into a more practical aspect. So Anna will build a little bit on what Niklas just mentioned to give you the more practical perspective. Anna is having her own game studio, so she is in the market every day working in here. So this is a very valuable because you see the market, how it works in practice, so to say. But I would like to start by asking you, Anna, could you just present yourself a little bit more than I did in the beginning and tell us a little bit more about your game studio?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. Again, my name is Anna, obviously. I run a very small indie studio called Valiant Game Studio. I'm the only full-time employee, but I have my board and my investors. And what I also do is I work with freelancers who work on my games, both internationally and also within Sweden. On top of that, I work as a consultant for other studios. So I have my own development with other people, like they're consulting for me. And I'm also on the other side of the table working with both Swedish companies and international companies. So I'm sort of on all sides of the table. Also, in addition to this, I can mention that I'm one of the hosts of something called Linkin Bar, which is is Sweden's largest meetup for game development companies. So I also meet a lot of other companies, other professionals from all types of game companies in our industry. So I'd like to think that I've heard a little bit of how our industry is going and what's going on in the industry.
Yeah, but this is what we try to pick your brains now, since you are inside the industry. I'm thinking I have a couple of questions for you. And the first one is very much related to this. How do you see the industry from inside? I mean, we heard Niklas' picture created with nice figures and clearly dramatic increases and so on. How do you see it from inside? What are the trends? Where do you put the focus? And so on.
Yeah, so I think overall the vibe is very optimistic and very like we know that the industry is growing. It's very obvious. I think many companies are expanding and we're doing quite well financially, both as an industry as a whole, and many companies are doing quite well. And it's also to the extent that many companies are become so large that they're sort of getting like child companies. Like they've been around for so long that the early people who founded the company or were early employees of the company, they are now leaving and starting new companies. So we're sort of in a second, almost third wave of that sort of the experience building up and moving on to new companies and so on. So we have, of course, had a little bit of a little bit more difficult financial time with the last year with the recession and everything. However, we have seen that the Swedish games industry is quite resilient because it hasn't been as bad here as in some other parts of the world, especially maybe the US has been hit harder than we have. So because we are also quite diverse in terms of which types of companies. Like Niklas mentioned, we have AR and VR, we have AAA companies, we have mobile companies, we have indie companies, we have publishers, we have investors. So we have sort of the whole ecosystem within one country, which is quite rare, to be honest, especially in a country this size, because Sweden is a very small country comparably. So I say there's a lot of optimism, but obviously we have still things that we need to work on as well. So we're expanding and we're trying to improve. When it comes to sustainability, when it comes to diversity and so on, we still have things that we need to get better at, but I think we're quite aware of our challenges, is my perspective on it.
That's very interesting and helpful and hands-on perspective, I need to say. If we go, I mean, one of the questions that we often get here at Open Trade Sweden is, okay, but what kind of requirements do I need to meet in order to actually be able to close a partnership with a Swedish company? And I'm thinking that the legal requirements, Niklas tried to cover them. There are a lot more information in the report. But there are a lot of other requirements that are not really legal requirements that Swedish companies also place it's very important for a Swedish company that their suppliers will meet those requirements. And you are working with other Swedish companies in partnerships. What do you see? What is important for a Swedish company when assessing a possible supplier or partner or so?
I just want to say that I agree with everything Niklas said. So it is important with following ethical codes and obviously following the law and like being ethical and everything in that sense, like when it's GDPR and everything, and also sustainability and diversity and so on. I agree, those are very important things that Swedish game companies look at. Of course, price will always be a thing, but however, I think because we're doing relatively well financially, it might not always be the top priority. Like we can usually afford to find, we can afford to look at quality in a way that maybe I don't know, we're in a space where we can usually look at quality and value that over the price tag in some cases. So I'd say like the quality of the product is very important. And also honestly, just sort of personal connection can sometimes be important. At least from my personal perspective, like getting cold emails and getting just, that sort of faceless contact doesn't work very well. I don't know if that's unique to Sweden, but I think meeting people at, for example, a conference and actually getting a human connection and feeling like this is someone who knows what they're doing, I've looked them in the eye, is sort of very important. So I think if you want to build a long-lasting relationship with a Swedish company, that would really help to sort of really, if you're able, meet physically and like build an actual sort of human connection. That can be really valuable for a long-term relationship, I think.
So it's, sustainability. If we look at the sustainability side, because I think that is the most tricky part to understand. Okay, what does that mean? What would a Swedish company look at and assess at a possible supplier in terms of sustainability? Do you have any examples?
That's a really good question. I mean, as an industry, we at least have the upside that we're not creating that much physical waste compared to other industries, which is obviously always a positive thing. But it might be like, let's say we're talking about AI, which Niklas mentioned in the report. AI can be extremely power consuming. So it might be, okay, we might look at then, what computers are using, how are they cooled? So like, especially if you're talking like big scale contracts, they will probably look at that, like what's actually your energy consumption and so on. Or like if it's a relationship, like with another country, will we have to travel there all the time? Like, will we physically have to jump on a flight every month? Like, that's not very good for the environment. Is there another way we can do this? and so on. It's of course tricky, and I think it really depends on what type of relationship you would have. But those are some things that pop into my mind. The energy consumption, I think especially, is what we can really make an impact on as an industry.
But that is a good indication where companies could actually look like and things that they could think about addressing in advance when when planning to meet a Swedish company. You could also think about what they could ask me about. Okay, but if you think a little bit about from your experience. Think about companies in developing countries, so a little bit maybe not so close to Sweden, maybe, and if they would be interested to come into the Swedish market, what kind of, can you give them some advice, tips, things to think about? Think about these 3 things that is important to address before taking any meetings in Sweden or thinking about the market. What would you say? What are the tips?
I mean, honestly, the first step is doing exactly this, which is getting to know the Swedish market a little bit and sort of networking and looking at what companies are out there, what is their focus. Just doing research, like going into their websites, what are they doing? Like, what's the focus of each company? Because, for example, I often get cold emails that clearly have no idea what my company is, and that is not, in my opinion, a very good foundation for a good lasting relationship, that you haven't even looked at the about page on the website. So doing the research beforehand, looking at the industry as a whole and seeing, doing exactly this, listening to what is the demand and sort of trying to find that niche and showing how you can sort of fill that need. And again, I think like trying to be quite friendly and like quite personable is not a bad thing, because this industry is it's a little bit special in that it's a little bit less formal than many others, I think, because we're sort of driven, a lot of people are very much driven by their passion and are really excited about making games, because it's a passion-driven industry to a large extent. Of course, there's business in there as well, obviously, but still, like, wearing a hoodie to a meeting is completely fine, and it might actually help you to be in a hoodie rather than in a suit and tie. It's that sort of mindset that, like, showing that you sort of understand and you're sort of a little bit in the know with such an easy thing as your clothing can actually help. So to sort of understand that sort of mindset and getting to know people more personally and building a long-lasting relationship can actually help. Because, like, of course, we want a good product, we want a good service, but also we want to trust the people that we work with. And yeah, like, really showing your best foot forward and trying to stand out in some way if you can. Like, if it's because you're from a part of the world that is underserved, whatever, that might instead be sort of to your advantage, because you have a point of view that we're maybe not used to seeing. If it's, for example, for art assets for a game, maybe you have a very unique sense of art that we can't really find in other part of the world. It's good to show that. It might close some doors, but it might open many other doors to have that sort of edge and that sort of uniqueness to you. Or if it's QA, like, what perspectives do you have? What previous work have you done that can really make you stand out? If it's localization, which languages can you provide? Or, like, whatever your thing is, don't be afraid to sort of really stand out in that way, I think.
But these are very, very good advices, and I think I kind of I recognize some of the things that you actually mentioned, because we work a lot with different countries that we can support, and I see this thing that there is an eagerness, to contact a lot of companies, and then when you do that, you might maybe cut the part with the research and being really personal when you address a Swedish company. But this is so essential, because, as you say, you might not open the email or the message or respond to it if you don't feel that it's really addressed to you. If it's the same message for 1,000 people, most probably you will just ignore it and go next. So if you really want to get the meeting with the Swedish company or to get attention, then you need to be personal, and in order to do that, you need to do your homework. Clearly, research the company.
Doesn't really have to be more than like 3-5 minutes per company. Like really doesn't need to be more than that. But like if you address me as sirs, plural, it shows that you have no idea who you're addressing.
Yeah.
And I will not even reply to your email. I will probably not open it. Like that's just how it is, unfortunately, because we get so many emails. Like if you show that you at least have gone to our website, that's going to be a big plus. It's such a small thing, but it will really help.
But this is if you want to take one thing with you from this webinar, all of you that are present in here, then take this. Be personal. Make a small research before, and try to show that person that you contact that you understand at least what they do. You might not understand their needs, but at least you understand the context they are acting in. And another thing that I know that it's sometimes a challenge, because I come myself from a country which is rather formal, and I learned in Sweden that to be informal is nothing wrong. It's just good and positive, actually, because people get so close to each other when they are informal. And I think that this is also another thing that's it's good that you pointed it out, Anna. That being informal, trying not to dress so formal always, trying to be exactly as the ones that you are going to meet. That also makes an impact in the Swedish market. And of course, making research of the market. That is a key. That is the first thing that you should do, because you shouldn't come here unless you actually have something to see an opportunity, clearly. Good. But I think that I will stop here with the interview, but I see that we have questions in the chat, and I was wondering if Oscar can help us a little bit. Can you give us some questions, Oscar?
Sure. There's a few questions. I can, someone asked, besides software development, what are the other sort of roles and skills that are demanded in this sector?
Yeah, I think Niklas mentioned some in the presentation, and I mentioned some as well. Like, for example, say QA and localization are the obvious ones, because QA usually need a lot. So the quality assurance testing, that's something that you usually need a lot of, and it's something that usually gets too expensive if we do it locally in Sweden. We rarely use Swedish testers on a large scale unless you really hire people and have them in-house. So that's something that's always in high demand from other parts of the world. And localization, obviously, working with people that speak other languages than we do is invaluable. So that's a really big thing. But also, for example, assets like 3D assets, for example. So for the AAA companies, they will need just a lot of art, for example. That's something that's often outsourced to other companies in other parts of the world, for example. And that might go for 2D assets for mobile games and so on as well. And anything that you need a lot of might be outsourced from other companies, basically. So those are just some examples. I'd say, like, from an indie perspective, as a smaller company, it might be sound, like audio or music, for example, because we very seldom hire someone to do that full time, because we just can't fill that role enough to have someone in-house to do that. So that might be something that we're looking for as well. So that's a little bit more sort of on the creative side. And that's also really a place where you can show your uniqueness. So like if you work with audio or music, really showing something that we usually don't see in Sweden or in Europe or from the United States, that's really a plus, in my opinion, to sort of give your unique vibe to it, or your unique, put your unique touch on it. It's really positive.
That's good. Thank you very much. Niklas, would you like to add anything?
I think she covered about everything I had on my mind.
Okay.
but I agree. Of course, we need programmers, but beyond that, we always need creative minds, creative people. Like game designers and artists and 2D, 3D, everything that Anna already mentioned. Sound designers, composers, also important, of course, for that, immersive feeling games. Maybe marketing in some extent, community management skills could be something on an international level. For building relationships with players and promoting games. Many Swedish games are for the international audience, not just here locally in Sweden. So that's I think is also always needed.
I'm happy you brought it up. I thought about it earlier, but then I forgot. So I'm happy you brought it up. That since we see new markets expanding, or like they're growing in size all around the world. So if you're in one of those markets and know sort of how it works and know how for us to sell our games on that market, that's something that's really, I think, going to be in high demand in the future. So that's really a future business to look into, basically, if you want to start something new.
That's nice. Thank you. Oscar, do we have another question?
Yes. Someone asked, is it possible to get sort of a list of incubators or accelerators? And what's maybe more important is, how do you find the contacts within these companies?
I could maybe try to answer that.
Should I try to answer it? Or
sorry?
I think you can try to answer it, Niklas.
Or were you trying to answer it? I don't know. Maybe I interrupted you.
No.
No. I think there were two questions, right? There were one question about incubators, accelerate, and one question about how to contact the companies.
Oh yeah, it's also about like how to find the contacts, and maybe you can also talk about which ways you should contact them as well.
Yeah, and I think in case you don't know, which you probably don't, is there's something called the Swedish games industry. In Swedish, we call it dataspelsbranschen, which I think is a good starting point. So basically, they represent a lot of game companies here in Sweden, and they also provide, valuable insights and also contact information to some of these companies. Another resource is Sweden Game Arena. We have Game Habitat. I think there are quite a lot of places, but I would start with look at Swedish games industry. We have something called Game Developer Index that they publish each year, and there they publish information about incubators, accelerators, and even some contact information to various companies. Maybe Anna could fill something in there.
Yeah, that's what I would say as well. Dataspelsbranschen, the Swedish Games Industry Association, they have the index that they give every year, or they put together every year. We have the list of every single Swedish game development company, regardless of what they do. So that's a very good place to start.
Excellent. And there is a link to the organization in the report. And of course, if you send the same question to us, probably you'll get exactly the same answer. We will send you there. Good. Should we take one more question? We have time for one more question.
Yes.
Oscar.
Someone asked, what is AI used for in gaming development more specifically?
That's a good question. So I think within games right now, like there's always like sort of two tracks. Like we want to sort of look at the future and look at future technology and how we can use it. And there's a lot of that sort of innovation in games. I would like to say there's also the sort of skeptical part that really wants to protect our artists and so on as well. So it can be good to be wary of how you approach with the Swedish games companies about AI, because it is a touchy subject, because people can lose jobs over it and so on. So it's sort of like with the blockchain and NFTs. Some are really into it and really want to expand with it, and some are a little bit more wary. Just want to put that out there. But when it comes to AI, there has been talk about like adding NPCs and so on, like giving them sort of building stories and building narratives with AI. I don't think that's super big in Sweden yet, but it's been talking about it. We have had a lot of machine learning. For example, Embark has done a lot of work when it comes to machine learning. So like characters in the game learn from their mistakes and they change their behavior and so on. Really interesting. They actually have some talks you can probably find online about it. I don't think they have a product that uses it out yet. They have some other games, but yeah. And of course, like has, so as far as I know, been used in part for like art and so on, art development. Hopefully, mostly as sort of a tool for the artists rather than replacing them. I don't know how far it's come yet. Those are the things that I can think of right now. Obviously, like it's used also to sort of generate maps and so on in the games. So of course, it's a two-part question: is how it's used in the end product as something the player can see, and sort of how it's used in development. So obviously, AI has always been used for like the behavior of the characters, behavior of the enemies, and so on, and that's completely fine, and it's going to keep happening. So, like for example, if you're a programmer who wants to work on you can work on like the behavior of the NPCs or the opponents in, let's say, a Paradox game. I see no change in that. And also it's going to be used more and more as a tool, I think, for programmers and for artists and so on that side. Sorry, a little bit winding question, but I hope that gives you an overview. Like it's a little bit everywhere, and some parts are, yeah, it's being developed in many ways and used in many ways in different parts of the games industry.
Thank you. Would you like Niklas to add anything to Anna's answer?
Not really. I think she covered it quite well. And it's also difficult to answer this question specifically to the Swedish gaming industry, because I think we use AI like any other gaming market, like Anna said, for NPCs, for procedural content generation and things like that. And more, of course, we start using it. We start seeing the trend to use it in development, not only to help with code, but also to help with things like QA and testing and to automate things. Yeah.
Good. But this
I think
is
it's even used in animation to assist with like automating certain things when it comes to animation. And so it has quite broad use in gaming.
Mm-hmm. And you are expecting that will just grow in the future. Is that where it goes?
Yeah, I mean, AI is here to stay. Question is just how we use it and do it. One thing, come back to the ethical part of it. I think for Swedish game companies, as in so many parts of the world, it's just a matter of how do we use it and also preserve our industry and preserve the jobs that we have and so on. So it's a balance, right? Like we definitely want to keep growing and use AI as a tool, but we also need to make sure that we don't inadvertently destroy something or take jobs away from people in the process.
Yeah, but you pointed out very well exactly where the discussion is right now, and there are a lot of things happening both on the policy side and around this issue. But I think it's time to close our webinar, and I would like to thank you both, Anna and Niklas, and also to Oskar. For all his help, and thank you to Anna and Niklas for really interesting both insights and dive into this gaming market. It became very practical, to be very frank, and this is what I hoped for. And for you who are listening, I think Oskar tried to share the new report, right, Oskar?
It's shared, yes.
Good. It is shared. We will try to share it also with a thank you email after this webinar. And feel free to come back to us if you have questions. And follow us in case you're interested in more IT verticals. The next one, it will be FinTech in about 3 weeks' time. Good. Thank you very much. And greetings from Stockholm. Bye-bye.
Thank you.